An organization has to integrate different generations working together because different generations belong to different periods and they represent different values, attitudes, and their attitude towards work may be different to each other. Let us discuss this topic to a major extent. How can we deal and integrate the gap between different generations? How do we integrate different generations and ensure to have a high performing teams? After all, high performance is the ultimate objective of an organization. Let us come to know the definition of what is generation gap. A generation gap refers to the chasm that separates the beliefs and behaviors belonging to members of two different generations. More specifically, a generation gap can be used to describe the differences in thoughts, actions, and tastes exhibited by the members of younger generations versus older ones. The differences may be in values and pop culture and other areas. While generation gaps have been prevalent throughout all periods of history, the breadth of difference of these gaps have widened in 20th and 21st centuries to a lot of extent and at times create problem in the process of integration because many times they take different stand and at times diametrically opposite stands are taken by two different generations which is not congenial for an organization to take the administration in a smooth way. So, key takeaways let us discuss. A generation gap, the different thoughts of worldviews held by different generations cohorts. The generation gap between individuals can be used to explain differences in the worldviews and actions observed among those of different age groups. The current living generations are the greatest generation, the silent generation, baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, and Generation Z. Businesses often aim to understand the different characteristics of each generation to better create and market their products and services. Employers seek to reduce the generation gap within the workplace by employing a variety of techniques in order to have an integrated approach with the generational gap by bridging the gap between two people or two generations, respectively representing two different generations. How to understand generation gaps? Generation gaps play big roles at businesses. This is because in order to sell to different groups, companies must find ways to balance the needs and views of individuals from those groups. Businesses must be aware of the changing demographies and genders of their client base, which can affect their business cycles and bottom lines. The term generation gap was first used in 1960s. During that time, baby boomers, those born between 1946 and 64, were growing apart from their parents in their beliefs and opinions. Number of nicknames were given to different generations. Let us discuss some generations like that. Digital natives. Sociologists use nomenclature to refer two different generation segments. For example, members of Generation Z born between 1996 and 2012 are called digital natives because they have lived with digital technology their entire lives. Digital immigrants. By contrast, older generational members are termed digital immigrants and tend to be less comfortable with the personal usage of technologies. Consequently, technology companies market products differently to each age group. In the same way, the organization has to entrust the responsibilities and carve out the roles and responsibilities within the organization basing on the backdrop of different generations and their different perspectives towards work, the time, level of work, the value, system about the work. That has to be taken care of by HR very, very carefully. Consequently, generational segments go by other handles. They are called radio babies. The greatest generation is also known as radio babies. The silent generation has also been called traditionalists. Baby boomers are also known as the me generation. So, several generations which are in focus of discussion till recently. Their distinguished current living generations have been divided into following six major groups: greatest generation, silent generation, baby boomers, generation X, millennials, and generation Z. Let us confine only to the up to the level of Z. A great depression and World War II survivors, they were instrumental in shaping the United States into an economic and military power. This group is defined by patriotism, teamwork, and drive. Very good qualities: patriotism, teamwork, and drive. They were born from 1901 to 1927. Silent generation. Born in 1928 to 1945, older members of the silent generation fought in Korea, while younger ones danced to Elvis and early rock and roll, formed the leadership of the civil rights movement, and were new frontier generation of President Kennedy, more traditional and rules following than the baby boomers. They are also called the traditionalist generation, although that may be misnomer for this group. Who are the baby boomers? They witnessed increasing social and economic equality and came of age as the country was split by differing views on politics, war, and social justice. The boomers participated in some of the greatest social changes in the country's history during 60s and 70s with civil rights movement and women's movement. Generation X, born between 1965 to 1980, Generation X, that generation grew up with emerging technologies and political and institutional incompetence. They witnessed Watergate, Three Mile Island, and the Iranian hostage crisis, but they also observed a major technological advancements. Mimeograph machines evolved into high-speed copiers, fax machines gave way to email, heavy adding machines were replaced by handheld calculators, and computers shrank in size and processing speed. They have witnessed that technological development. Millennials, these are born between 81 to 1996. Millennials have always known cable TV pagers, answering machines, laptop computers, and video games. Technological advancements in real time media and communication have driven their expectation for immediacy. Anything should be done immediacy. That is their attitude. They are the generation that bridges the gap of growing up in a world before and after the internet. They have also seen untold tragedy in their youth with events like Columbine High School shootings 1999 and the attacks of September 11, 2001. Millennials who are hit hard by 2008 Great Recession. They were very much hurt by the Great Recession, hurting the long-term outlook of their finances. Those born at the edge of the Generation X and millennials are sometimes referred to as exennials. Generation Z. Generation Z is the generation after the millennials, born between 96 to 2012. This generation consists of individuals in young adulthood, teenagers, and children. This is the first generation that grew up with the internet as a fact of life. Once again, I repeat this sentence. This generation, this is the first generation that grew up with the internet as the fact of life, not knowing a world without email, immediate access to information, or mobile phones. So, While discussing these things, various generations, their ranging of value systems to the style and pattern of work, is there really a generation gap, or is no longer it is a gap because the technology is advancing and there are a number of steps are being taken to bridge this gap, or the time itself, the advancement of the progress itself is filling up the gap, and necessity sometimes drive these various generations to absorb, to change, and to mold their attitudes and work patterns to sustain their life and at the same time to participate in the growth and development of a country. There are many studies conducted on this topic. There will always be different generations simply because people are born at different times. Similarly, the world and society are always changing, which will inadvertently change the perception of individuals depending on the period they grew up. Studies do also show that the differences in generational gaps are minimal. Individual differences also play a role, and so do socio-economic factors because of the socio-economic factors. Then, what are the important steps to be taken at the level of the administrative hierarchy or at the level of a top management in order to avoid any problems created by this generations gap? Set up mentoring programs representing the employees from different generations. Reverse mentoring, we have to accept when you are trying to mentor a young manager, you must be ready to accept his ideas. That's called, you must absorb those ideas, and then it is called reverse mentoring. A mentor has to be prepared for a reverse mentoring, where young generations mentor older generations. That also has to take place in an organization. Enabling the older generation to adapt to new technologies and ways of working. Communication is imperative. Ensuring our organization has regular team meetings, frequent and formal gatherings, corporate communications, constant feedback, and coaching. They will help definitely to bridge this gap. Millennial engagement we will concentrate. Create a flexible work culture where employees feel empowered based upon trust. Implement, because this is a very sensitive generation. Implementing a clear defined career path. Provide opportunities and experience that align to career goals. Employees want to feel progress, that they are continually learning. That feeling must be given through learning and development. They are continually in the process of learning while working for the organization, because this generation will always estimate what is their capacities and skills to get a higher job in a separate organization or to occupy a higher level post in the same organization where they are working. Physical design of the work environment will have more impact than we think. Millennials tend to make quick and impulsive decisions that we have to accept. They take at times decision to leave, moving from job to job, often following a friend or ex-colleague, or as a split decision for perceived quicker career progression. Quick decisions, as we know, can lead to regret if it is not the right experience for them. That care of grooming this generation, that care of advising them, that care of guiding them in their profession and their thinking process about changing or quick decision making, we must enlighten them that instinct oriented decisions, thinking, and quick decision making in the name of some alternative is not good. We must explain them the way of life, the way of the market, and the way in which the industry trend is going on. At this stage, they might want to return, so it is important to leave the door open. I earnestly request all the senior managers who are working in various organizations and high level executives to dwell on this and brood over. This will give you an idea how to deal and bridge the gaps. The matter is attached is in tune to the managerial necessity. Whether we like it or not, this is definitely what that is. Bridging a gap between different generations working at a particular place together, we must see the larger interests of the organization to carry on all the generations in the same stream to develop the organization. We have to take precautions, and the senior management has to take concentrated look. They must take up, they must personally involve in several discussions and organize several programs through learning and development through a sociologist, through a professor who specialized generation gap, or from an experienced, highly experienced employee who can narrate his experience unbiasedly, objectively to the younger generation, duly accepting where the mistakes have taken place previously and what is the present generation's positive and negative points. That unbiased level of monitoring and an objective method of mentoring them is required in order to protect the generational interests and also to protect the interests of the organization. Thank you very much.